Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to Pride in Poetry. I'd like to thank Kellogg Hubbard Library, Orca Media, especially Fern, who is taping us today, Poem City, the organizer, Linda Quinlan. I'd like to remind the audience that books are on sale. The poets have them before them. And I think, just by way of prefatory commentary, I think given our national and world situation now, I think that Audre Lorde's dictum, poetry is not a luxury, couldn't be more timely. We have a stellar lineup today involving 4 poets who are going to read for 10 minutes. Then we'll have 10 minutes of question and answer. Then we'll have a little schmoozing time, and we're all going to go to Hugo's. Those of you who wish are going to go to Hugo's restaurant afterwards for a little bite and more conversation. So, without further ado, as they say, I'd like to introduce our first poet, Kim Ward. She's a poet, playwright, and a visual and theater artist. She's the founder of Vermont Playwright Circle, which has been going on for many years. How many?
28.
28, yes. Kim got her MFA in performance poetry from Goddard College in 1998. Her play Angel in the Fire received the 1999 Playwright Showcase Award by the Vermont Actors and Theater Artists Association, and was also accepted into the New Frontiers Conference in 2000. She has lived in Montpelier for over 20 years and teaches English at Norwich University. So let's welcome Kim.
I feel like anytime you say someone works somewhere, you have, especially education right now, you have to say, for now.
Yeah.
So I have no clue what I'm reading tonight. Isn't that great? I don't think I ever do. I'm also very short compared to her. There we go. I love that sound. That's cool. Toussaint's got a Star Wars sound coming out of his phone. I love it. I love it. Uh-oh, wait. So I rushed in, and I need my glasses. What am I doing? I took them off to put on sweaters and stuff. Right now, I'm not going to be able to read. That's all right. I'm here to read with no glasses. So, true story. As I've gotten older, I've been carrying my glasses around my neck.
Do you want mine?
And are they just readers?
Well, they're
Yes, they're just readers.
Ah, great. So I get filmed in your glasses. I like it. And I took them off to put on a sweater to change 6 shirts, and here I am. So there we go.
This could be a new poem.
This is a whole new poem. I left my glasses in San Francisco. So I have a book out, Fire on a Circle, came out this time last year, and you can get it at Bear Pond Books if you like. And I do have a poem in Poem City this year, so maybe I should start with that one.
And Monica's got the painting on the front.
Monica's painting beautifully. Her Enso is on the front. We have to talk about your stickers, though, which have no white behind them, which I don't like. Here we go. I'm going to get up and just see it. I love them with the background, and then when I take it off to stick it somewhere, there's no white behind it.
Well, that's because it comes through.
I don't like that.
Oh, gosh, all right.
You're like, oh, Kim, shut up and read a poem. I got to go. Oh, wait. There's so many young people with amazing poems here. I should have a bookmark and glasses and such. Okay. So this is the poem that is in Poem City this year. It's called Empathy's Crown. It certainly is apropos of the political climate, shall we say. Where do we authorize the sheep for their new brains? They can skip and climb this murmurous U.S. terrain, but don't understand the risks. Why can't they read the fine print at the bottom of these cliffs? See the tattered flag, the empty husks of once held trusts? And where can we find a border collie to herd them east and down to the green valley below, where empathy holds her crown? And you can see that in the Book Garden's window. Yeah, I wrote that last year, well before November. It's been building a long time, hasn't it? And so from the wide to the smaller angle, this is called I Could Identify My Own Body. And it came when I was looking at all the bumps and bruises and scars that come from life and thought, well, if I were to have to identify my dead body, I could. That's where it comes from. Morbid much? I could identify my own body, of course, with its tiny brown spot on the meat of my right thumb, the soft outward curve of the belly built through years of neglect and attention to comfort foods. But could you? So many years of intimacy felt from up close and more often now from another country altogether. I'm not sure I could identify yours, but your heart. Now that's another matter. Weighed against a feather, floated on the Styx, its white down gently bobbing beside Charon's chipped boat, while you recline, coin in your hand because you cannot stand the bitter taste of metal. Your life's anchor weighed before you pushed off, laid askew on the damp riverside, back in the land of the living. Well, that's one of my newest poems. Still wet behind the ears. We'll see what I like, and I actually ended up thinking of like several other stanzas for that. So Fire in a Circle. The title Fire in a Circle comes from some work I did as a pagan. I was practicing pagan for many years, and when you cast a circle to create a ritual, that's your sacred space. And oftentimes I think, the fire that protects us if we're within the circle. And I did many years of working with the runes, the Nordic runes, and I wanted to understand them better, so I created poems using the runic name, and then sort of my own sensibilities being from Vermont. And so there's this blend of modern and these old terms. So I'll just read a couple of those. But the first, and so the German, it says this is actually the German Futhark. And you think about alphabet, alpha, beta is the A and B. And the Futhark is the first few letters of the first runes. Fehu, Uruz, Thurzaz, Kanzuz, Futhark. And so they're kind of foreign words to hear out loud at a reading, but in the book you can look at them. So, Fehu, and when you see the note at the bottom, Fehu stood for cattle, property, prosperity, right? Cattle were prosperity. Fehu, fussy calf, short pink tongue questing. Fehu, prosperity. Your cattle are huddled in the field. Fehu, that fuzzy at the horn root calf. If you come close to the fence, I'll offer my hand as a sloppy sacrifice, just to feel your slick tongue seeking. Look upon me, Fehu, with your dark eyes. The fields are still wet with dew, and my head is full of dreams. And Uruz it's spelled U-R-U-Z, and Uruz stood for this cattle called auroch. It's great big deer called auroch that the Romans thought it was really manly to hunt them, and so the Romans all hunted them into extinction because it was manly to kill them. So take that for what you will. And it stands for strength, of course. Uruz, urchin in the rock with eyes that know. Uruz, wild bull's thunder on tin roof in rain. Strength takes you up the green mountains, locked you in battle with the hunter, and even if you perish, you do so with the grace of a dance across the mountainside, and your blood returns to good earth, strengthening those who come after. All these are very short because I'm trying to mimic the Nordic runes. So I'll just read one more of these and then one that's actually more of an amalgamation of them all. This is Knaz, and being the letter K in my name, Kim, Knaz was actually stood for fire or fever within, and it was often used in magic in a negative way, but it also could be, I tried to spin it positively because it is in my name. Knaz, torch from within. I feel your heat fill me. Sickness is my marrow, until I learn to tame the molten river. Canaz, you left me for dead on your doorstep. How could I have let myself fall beneath your spell? When did I blossom with this fever? The sand of your desert temple washes my skull clean with passion, stuff of desert winds, carrying no way to slake my thirst. It forces me northward, and I go forth, riding the wind, tearing up the land until finally I come back to black earth, fertile with clarity. And so from these short poems, I then moved on to this poem called Green Mountain Runes, in which I tried to really think about my ancestry in Vermont, those who came before, my grandmother who grew up on a 250-acre farm in Richmond, how they could all connect together. Green Mountain Runes. Great grandmother, beginning with your bare Irish feet standing on Abnaki backs, you walked from rune to rune. Fehu, cattle, was first. Fehu, prosperity, which first generation meant sheep. More sheep than one woman could shear and not go bleary-eyed and bloody-handed home. The gold of the hills propped you up when you walked the rolling turf up Snipe Ireland Road, where the barns had yet to cure, much less sag. Today I walk amidst an upturned corpse of wood and hay. The foundation is filled with rusting scythes and old plows, and in the field above the graves are full. You've moved on to Nauthiz, that greedy little rune full of vicious joy at taking if you don't watch him. I stand before your tombstone. Below us, the highway prances like a nest of ticks. The falling dark pulls yellow fool's gold from the city on the horizon as it sparks to light. It's just sort of trying to...
We should probably wrap it up soon.
I'm going to do the one that I will get in trouble with if I don't read it.
Okay.
Vermont calendar. Yeah, it took me 5 minutes to find my glasses. Vermont calendar. I wanted to write a poem about Vermont, but no one wants to know my Vermont. The streets of the trailer park flooding and freezing in winter, the boys tripping me mercilessly as I crawled my way across that rippled expanse of ice in a dress I'd been forced to wear to school. The man whose trailer was the first one at the third entrance who chopped his wife to pieces as if he could fling her up and make ruby stars by which to navigate his broken heart. Our neighbor Billy, who decided not to come to the bus stop on Monday because he had a date with a tree and a rope he could not break. I vowed at 16 one day I would make my own foliage calendar and send it to Vermont Life for publication, with a January full of rusted trailers instead of collapsing bucolic barns or tractors, and an October full of young, tortured souls falling in the bright air in reds and blacks and blues. And a December filled with the panoramic picture of my neighbor David running from his father's rusted truck at midnight, cast in green, sickly night vision. And Byers would get a special greeting card with a microchip, playing the song of his adolescent voice calling out, "Dad, no, don't, please, stop," while the growl of the engine can be heard rising and falling like a roaring fire truck. The byline would state, "No rural poor were killed in the making of these memorabilia. David only broke his leg that night." Thank you.
Thank you.
You're covered,
And requested that?
yeah, that's
Yes.
the one you like.
Glasses, please. Kim, could I have my glasses back?
Oh, I can't see you with this on. I heard her say something.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Thanks for reading my favorite poem, too, of yours. Let's turn now to Laura Foley, who is the author of most recently, Sledding the Valley of the Shadow, and Ice Cream for Lunch, a grandparent's handbook, both of which you have today. She has won the Narrative Magazine Poetry Prize, the Bisexual Book Award, Common Good Books Poetry Prize, Poetry Box Editor's Choice Chapbook Award, and others. Her work has been widely published in such journals as Alaska Quarterly, Valparaiso Poetry Review, American Life and Poetry, featured often on the Writer's Almanac, and included in anthologies such as How to Love the World and Poetry of Presence. For many years, she worked as a volunteer in the No One Alone program at DHMC, was trained as a chaplain in hospitals and prisons, and is a certified yoga instructor. She holds a graduate degrees in literature from Columbia University and lives with her wife, Clara Jimenez, on the steep banks of the Connecticut River in West Lebanon, New Hampshire. Laura Foley.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be here. And start with someone. I once lived on a great wide river, a time of deep aloneness after loss. How soothing it was to watch waters passing, sunlight reflected in circular currents, a white moon cresting above the shadowed mountain. I miss the river, though not the hushed quietness of that time, the endless plumbing of depths I never guessed, which nonetheless led me to choose a wife calling me from another room, as she is now, to come downstairs for tea, steeped to the color of the river. So that's the Connecticut River. So the once invisible garden. How did I come to be this particular version of me and not some other? This morning of purple delphiniums blooming like royalty, destined to meet these 3 dogs asleep at my feet and not others. This soft summer morning sitting on her screened porch, become ours, our wind chime singing of wind and time, yellow-white digitalis feeding bees and filling me, and more abundance to come, basil, tomatoes, zucchini. What luck or fate, instinct or grace brought me here in shade, beneath hidden stars, a soft summer morning, seeing with my whole being love made visible. Picking up political matters. This was written at the time of the Justice Kavanaugh hearing with Christine Ford. We are ready. No more silence as we are being forced. No more hiding. No waiting for drunken boys to leave the room so we can sneak egress. No more young men pinballing downstairs, careening to Ivy Leagues and good careers, leaving broken girls in their wakes. We, with our messiness, are ready to mess with them, with our menstruation, procreation, and breast milk dripping. We are filling Senate seats and floors. We are breaching the hallowed doors of power. Let the aging, suited men turn red. Let them shout, rant, and cry on live TV. They've taken their playlist from a president who teaches how to hate. But we who bear and birth the fruits of love, destined by biology to caretake and not forsake compassion, are breaking our silence to educate. A senator today in an elevator on the state of our nation. And another one on the same lines. Daddy, oh no, it's not on the same lines. Daddy and the Beast. Last night I dreamt the president stalked me in my kitchen. Last night I dreamt the self-proclaimed pussy-grabbing president married my mother. I dreamed the leader of the free world chanted, "Lock her up," at me from my kitchen sink. I dreamed of trying to please and giving up trying to please a raging beast. I gave up springing from my activities to greet him at the door, gave up always giving more, shouting, "My father is dead, you are not my father, and not every woman adores a fascist." Last night I dreamt my father, the doctor, was not this bully, though he bullied me as he worked to heal strangers. And the stranger he became, my father, locked up in war by the Japanese. A difficult father I came to love, dead now to me, and everyone dead, Mr. President, I dreamt I said, as I descended winding stairs, pulling my sweatshirt hood around my ears, but still hearing our common end, dead, dead, drumming the quotidian rhythm in my head. So I haven't read from this book yet. It came out in the end of last year, and I had a reading scheduled, and then we had a big snowstorm. So I'm reading some poems really to a gathering for the first time. Some of the, I'll read one more political one, because they feel so appropriate, unfortunately. In the village store, as a woman and I wait in a snaking line to pay, a man cuts in front, and she catches him, insists he retreat. But he, angry, I assume, from last week's election, the president's drubbing, snarls, "You're one of the damn Dems," and "not a lady," assuming, I presume, that she wants to embody such an antiquated state. Well, my nose twitches like a rabbit caught napping in a coyote den, wondering if I must choose a side to leap to, as a chasm opens between the chocolate aisle and the cheese, as she points her finger like a lightsaber, screeching, "His butt is as big as Trump's." Fat, I might judge from his eating too much beef, as she displays her blue-jeaned posterior like a peacock's tail, firm and toned. I assume as she pats it from dieting and yoga here in Vermont, where he likely presumes we all vote for Bernie the socialist, New Age heathens in want of evangelical saving. Well, we profess enlightenment, but sometimes act like orangutans squabbling over bananas in the wilds of Borneo. That was in the farmer's market in Woodstock. Okay, one more poem? Okay, so I'm going to read, I'm going to skip poems about my grandchildren. That's, you can check that if you're interested. And I'd like to read one more poem from this new collection that has just, it's just coming out now, and this is my contributor copy. It's called Love is for All of Us, and I'm sure it'll be available at Bear Pond Books. And James Cruz and his husband, Brad Peacock, are the editors. And the poem that I have in here is called The Something. The something. Time to notice drops of dew on every fallen leaf, to draw a finger through the tiny pools of light, to watch a body's shadow casting backward on the leaves, to feel the sun's surprising heat this late October day. Time to feel the veil of something, the something that exists between me and her, invisibly pulling, as I sit in sunlight waiting for a single leaf to drop and catch it in mid-flight. I can feel her texting, "Please bring mushrooms. I want to make a soup for you." Thank you.
These glasses are an issue now.
Huh?
The glasses are taking center stage. Our third reader is Linda Quinlan, whose biography I know well. She's a working-class lesbian poet whose book Chelsea Creek was published by Brick House Press. She's the recipient of Brick House's Wicked Women's Poetry Award. Her poems have been published in many literary journals, including Sinister Wisdom, Firewood, Pudding, and Conditions. Most recently, Linda was honored to be chosen to participate in the Vermont Humanities Council's Words in the Wood series. Welcome, Linda.
Hey. Thank you, Ann. First poem I'm going to read pretty much all new poems because, I don't want to bore myself. But the first one is, it's about my cousin. He was 7 years younger than me, and at 14 I was assigned to babysit him. And so this is called babysitting Danny. Danny and I met for the last time at a Fifth Street bar, 2 doors down from his mother's old haunt, where I ran numbers for her to the bookie joint across the street. My hand reaches for him, then retreats. He is a tear waiting to fall on my cheek. I taught him to steal at Woolworth's. He emptied his pockets, his small pockets, and delivered his haul to older girls he wanted to please. Balloons, eyeliner, and candy lips that bled into our mouths. His mother was 43 when she was found dead, empty pill bottles beside her, no last words in an apartment above Cat's Bagel. I wanted to steal something for him, to give him his mother's laugh, the way she held a martini and a cigarette. I paid for his beer and offered nothing more. He lagged behind me, my car door opened and shut. 6 months later, he's dead. Beer bottles on his floor, California sun on my face when I get the call. A gun in his hand, no suicide note, a lone picture of his mother on the nightstand. And this one is called Late Afternoons. And I sent this poem somewhere, and I got this response back saying, this could never have happened at the VA. Well, I'm here to tell you it did, because I worked there. Late afternoons working at the VA. I sip cappuccino, foam on my upper lip, as friends rant about my smoking. More than my graying hair or the wrinkled lines connecting patterns of age, I resent the hours, the lost hours spent avoiding animal corpses in elevators, mice heads precisely pinned down on boards, and neat rows of students harvesting brains. One friend wears protective glasses, white gloves the lab for toxic remains, autoclaves the remnants in hazardous bags, and reads self-help. My partner weeps at the losses, howls at the mourning, and medicates the days. We live clearly for an instant, and all say that none of this is dangerous. So, for my friend who said this could never happen. Okay. And this poem is about my dad, and it's called Murder on Garland Street, which is the street I grew up on. So, I shot a crow, my father tells me, on his deathbed. His blue and hooded eyes need me to know, but I can't hold his regret. He's 90, diapered, lying on a hospital bed. My young son's beside him that day, the whisper of autumn leaves hushed by the thump on the ground, open-winged, beak-headed north with the moss. He says he was a cruel man, yet not always, and I'm sure he is thinking of me, the time we made a dollhouse in the basement, little people sitting on chairs watching TV. At 16, the keys to his 1956 Chevy. Still, he needs to tell me nights at the hunting lodge, his friends cut off the balls of deer and throw them into flames. Why had I done that, he asked. Did the crow's mate mourn as he does now, lying with a blistered heart, the crevices in his body filled with medicine that can't fix him? Do you think there's a God? This man of faith asked his atheist daughter, and I have compassion still that sweeps between anger and love, back and forth, the way a broom does, unconscious of what it picks up. I open the blinds, watch them lift higher and higher to reveal the city. A police car roars by. The death rattle stops, and I never want more than now for there to be a God who will forgive him. And this poem is about, I had a high school friend named Linda Fazio. And she committed suicide. She was 20. And partially because her sister said she was, now this was like 1965, 66, and her family decided that because she had a child who was black, with a black man, that they would take the child away from her and put it up for adoption, which is what they did. And so this is called Father Tom. 45 years after Faye's suicide, Tommy finds me on Facebook. His sister perched behind familiar eyes, a distant cooing of someone long gone. He was 14, and he was 12, and I 14. When I taught him to French kiss, I had totally forgotten what he remembered as divine. He asked for pictures of his sister, and I had many. Teased brown hair, black nylons, and a look of toughness we all flaunted. In one, she's standing beside Diane, who carries a switchblade in her pocket. We didn't talk about the mental hospital or how we scammed to break her out, give her back her daughter, stolen from her arms, and moved to New York City. Her daughter is over 55 now, brought up in some suburb. I hope she's loved, has a fuck you swagger, and devours Italian food. Neither of us cries until I'm in the car and an oldie station plays, Tommy, can you hear me? I was a pinball wizard at Revere Beach. Faze cheered me on and insisted we hang by the Himalaya, raising our voices towards the waves, before the time when nothing would bring her joy. And for the last poem I'm going to read it's called The Tobin Bridge. And anybody's from Massachusetts, the Tobin Bridge is a bridge that cut Chelsea in half in the 50s, which ruined any prospect it might have had, even though it was a very poor city, very immigrant city, of having any chance of the people there surviving and having, good middle-class lives. Anyway, so that bridge is called the Tobin Bridge. And so this poem is dedicated to that bridge, of which I will still not drive over. I go all the way around. So anyway, this is called the Tobin Bridge. When I was a teenager, men in large yellow trucks came and tore through the projects where my aunt and uncle lived. The field of dirt they left was filled with old pictures and bed frames we used as trampolines. One night, someone lit a fire there. Using wood from the old houses, it fizzled out quickly, as do most rebellions. Us kids walked along Broadway, stopping at Ralph's Pizza, trucks carrying steel beams that workers pounded into the ground, making a green monster bridge to carry the North Shore wealthy into Boston. From Paula's roof, we could almost touch the cars traveling south that never stopped in Chelsea or saw my aunt on her knees, my uncle holding her shoulders as she wept. We made caves under that bridge, lifting dirt and chips of lead paint that blew into our mouths, mingled with the taste of camels and tango. On warm days, the sun never reached us under the bridge, and if we weren't at the beach pooling our money for pizza we shared, we all wanted to throw the ring and win a prize, but there was no money. Just anger you could see in our faces and the green monster making shadows. Thanks.
And our last reader is Sam Stockwell. She has published in Agni, North American Review, The New Yorker, among others, and The New Yorker, among others. Her new book, Musical Figures, is published by 30 West Publishing House. Her two previous books, Theater of Animals and Recital, won the National Poetry Series USA and the Editor's Prize at Elixir. She won the Massachusetts Poetry Festival First Poem Prize, was selected as the Editor's Choice at Panoply, and was the Editor's Choice for Brain Mail Press. Recent poems are in Plowshares and others. You can find out more about her at www.samstockwell.org. Sam?
Thanks for coming tonight. I had this poem. I thought this would be a great time to test out this poem, but the Wi-Fi wasn't working at home, so I can't do that. So I'll read some other poems that are still being worked on. Farmhouse. I curl up with my aunt. Her husband broke her arm. We watch him storming away. My aunt holds her arm up. It is healed, a crick now when it extends. She is assuring me that we heal. What one can do, so can another. The sweet peas blossom on the fence. Working in the garden is how we restore what's lost. I carry a pail of water. The handle swivels and water falls on my feet, but there's enough. My aunt has something to tell me about my mother. She is shaking her head back and forth as she picks potato bugs off the plants, squashing them with her thumbnail. A small stream runs in back of the garden, mingling with sewage from an outhouse and motor oil from a neighbor's dying car. I hold on to a fence rail. As the older sister, she was responsible for my mother. When my mother went sleepwalking, she pulled her back from the road and guided her to the house. She had to do her chores when my mother languished. No one languished, sturdiness or nothing. So she went, my mother, to get milk from the ice house so her mother could make butter. And how children get waylaid, how they wander. I'm on the Berry City Council, and so that involves going door to door a lot and just seeing what people are interested in and what are their issues. And I usually go with someone else, and it's almost always interesting. There's a word you may not know in here. It's dystonia, which means a problem with muscle coordination. Survey says, I was with Byrne, and we were going door to door like some hopped-up ladies' aid society. And the first woman we met needed aid. Her daughter had died. She had a granddaughter as aid and memory, but too far away. The woman had a dystonia new to me. Her speech was like a machine gun jamming. The apartment was full of immaculateness, clean surfaces, dusted photos. We offered such aid as our meager hearts could pump, the pocket with a fresh mint candy inside. On we went, but carrying her, yes, in our untidy chambers. I flew into the store for a hello and back to the tepid street where the sun was wavering. Jill was walking in the roadside slush, black fur hat, wads of brown scarf, black coat. Through her thickly painted makeup, she smiles with her remaining teeth. It pleases her that I remember her and in no way try to rescue her. There's something I haven't told you about Jill. 30 years ago, I saw her art show, and I couldn't afford to buy a painting. But it was spacious and contained day and night and consoled me in all my long hungers. She had given me what I wanted to carry, but I had nothing for her. I'm not really ambivalent about Pride Month, but the first day of Pride Day always makes me incredibly sad. Not because we're celebrating, but because of the loss of lives. Like all the people that aren't there, the people that died of AIDS, the women who were institutionalized. So for me, people are celebrating, there are balloons, there's dancing, and I'm trying not to cry, usually successfully. Pride Day. Kevin and Sonia were riding their bikes to the green, though I could hardly see as I was crying and it was raining mildly. A table with lemonade and cupcakes was under a striped awning. A drag queen was lip-syncing to Mamma Mia. Another thing, we treat beauty as though we could isolate it from its siblings. It wasn't as odd as it felt to have nurses handing out safe sex kits. You could see how quote marks could encircle most descriptions. She was beautiful after she was arrayed and placed on the stage. Not everyone can be made up. cut everywhere. I think of this poem as sort of about the body politic. Cut everywhere. Some people can't be anesthetized. Awake and strapped to a table, they scream as the doctors approach. The pain, sanctioned by authority, pads through their future. No nurse enters the operating room. The doors are closed, and the story they are shouting is a smudge on the polished steel of the tools. At St. Augustine's, we were fringe characters of the 8th grade. Excluded from the traffic of gentler lives, we stole incense to burn in seashells placed in the woods. Then she married, her parents' fury stomping over the church, 13 and pregnant. Husband and thinning wife holding hands, not long after as they bent over a selection of headstones for an infant's grave. I watched them, offside. I had missed the ceremonies of her life. She became a waitress. Amid the street fights on Saturday nights, she could pick out the roar of her husband. I'll read a couple from my book, and then that will be that. The 5th winter of my grandmother. Her father, drunk, tied her to a sled and walked quietly through the snow to leave her with a distant relative. The sawing of the runners, the creak of the crossbar as he pulled, an owl above the now clear, now distant figure of her father as snow sifted around him. Her father didn't die, not then, but disappeared in the same woods. It was her mother she searched for. Her mother would pluck the youngest and the oldest to leave and reset the table for 4, a blue water pitcher, roast potatoes, salt pork. No matter how many times my grandmother cooks the same meal, they never take her back. Road trip. We slept by the highway in West Virginia. I don't remember how we made it that far. By morning, the gullies of the sleeping bag were filled with snow. In the few houses strewn beneath the overpass, we could smell cornbread frying and hear dogs. Because his parents were wealthy, he was supposed to bring money. He unrolled a candy bar and a quarter, his broad shoulders shaking as he wept. We turned back a long way from New Jersey. I knew someone in the splatter of houses would take us in, and I would have my hand on him to show he was meek, and slowly nod to show I was wise. A tragedy in 3 acts. I was driving past Walmart when the transmission fell out of my car. 2. It reminded me of bumping my suitcase up the steps of the Greyhound when the cover sprang open, festooning the passengers with my underwear. 3. At school, we played polio victim. The smallest, I was daily lugged by grieving classmates from Tarmac to Appletree, where a miracle occurred because I didn't want to be the main corpse. Thank you.
Thank you, poets. That was great. Now it's time for Q&A, where you ask questions of our distinguished panel. I'll start. Who are your favorite poets? I know, my favorite question.
Anne loves that question.
Favorite poets.
Your influences and the other ones. So
Okay, either poet.
there's so many, Anne.
I know.
Well, I would say like everybody, but
Everybody.
well, not everybody. There are certain poems that I think are very influential in my life, like Sestina by Elizabeth Bishop. I think that's an extraordinary work. And the way she varies repetition in that particular poem just astonishes me. So there's a repeating thing about tears. And it's the tears of the teacup, it's the tears of the almanac, it's the tears of something else. So I think that poem and the way she uses repetition, but she also varies it enough so that it's rooted in an incredible aliveness.
They were like, now you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I was thinking, reflecting on how I enjoyed your readings, the three of you, and how each of you had a distinct voice, different stories. I learned so many things, and a different way of like the rooms. Like, and I just found it's very exciting to hear your voices. So at the moment, you are my favorite poets. And I like the whole enterprise that we are involved in. And there's always that question: is what we are doing enough, considering everything? And I was feeling tonight, a spark of, yes, this is what we're doing. I know I love to do it. I love to, a story happens, or I see a story or something happens that wants to be transferred or transformed into something that will be perhaps lasting. And that process is fabulous, and I find it's constantly renewing. So.
Good job.
Good answer. And when you said that, the first person that came to mind for me was Ntozake Shange. And meeting up close and personal her piece in college was transformative for me as a person. And then like seeing not only that she and the women she worked with were doing this poetic expertise that went on the stage, but then seeing it done later on, done as a movie, and just like all the amazing ways that words are not just on the page, right? And for me, that's just, they have to be spoken aloud, whether it's me and one other person or 5 people, it doesn't matter. They're different when you speak them in front of people, so. But I also love Denise Leggett and so many people, yeah.
It's just,
But
Yeah.
this is one of those people.
I think for me, well, my teacher, Martha Collins, in college was a real big influence. But I think, like as a young lesbian writer or a young lesbian, Judy Grahn really inspired me and said, you don't have to have all this other stuff. You can write from where you are. And so that was a really big influence for me. Audre Lorde, the same thing, was a very big influence on my work. She wrote about, and she was angry, and she wrote about her anger and her love and all of that, but she was really, talked a lot about class, and that really influenced me a lot. Class has always been something that I felt was really inspiring to me. Audre Lorde, of course. I mean, and Adrienne Rich, of course. Yeah, Adrienne Rich, of course. But those were the most influential because that was sort of when I was first, coming out and writing as a young lesbian writer, and so those were mine.
Thank you. Questions from the audience?
And it's my favorite question. And I'm actually going to direct it to Sam.
Okay.
When you first started, you indicated that these were poems that you were still working on and sort of giving it voice and sort of how it feels. Could you sort of expand on that and talk a bit about what's your creative process? What will come next with these poems? And then maybe we'll put Linda on the spot because she was saying that those were new poems as well.
Yeah.
It helps to read things to an audience, really no matter what size the audience, and it really helps to read things aloud because then you hear it differently. And when you're in a room with other people who are hearing your words, you hear the way they breathe. That's what was so hard about doing Zoom readings, was because, people would turn off and you couldn't hear audience response.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really tell if people were paying attention. It was horrible. It was like being shut in a box. So that process of having people hear the poems with me, and then I see things in them. Like I practice and think, oh, that sounds terrible, or that's not clear enough, or that works. I think that, so it's another way of testing out how well the structure works, which often takes a long time. These poems, I think, are fairly close to done. I wouldn't have really read anything that raw, but something that I thought, oh, maybe it's completely dreadful, but. So they're well along, and I want to see how well they functioned.
A quick anecdote, I was at a Galway Canal reading, and he's Galway Canal, one of my favorite poets. He had a pencil, and he was changing the poem as he was walking up to give his reading.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I read some stuff out of this book tonight that I read differently than it's printed. Because I don't like the way I had the tense, and I was like, no, that's not right. It was in the Vermont poem, actually, and I always go back and forth with those last few lines. Is it present tense, past tense? What am I doing with this? And even, bless Sam, who was editing with me when we were doing this. I was like, no, because it's fine, I can change it later. Because Donald Hall, he's one of my favorite poets, and he would do that too. So there's this process, and I actually would read stuff that was that raw. Maybe not as much now as I've gotten older, but the first poem not the one from here, but the one about the marks on my body, I could identify my own body. It's very new. I haven't edited it yet since I wrote it. But again, you could read it alone at home, and you could read it in front of you, and suddenly you're like, that sounded so much better in front of my mirror. Someone's listening to it, and suddenly it changed. It's the last piece of any reading is the audience.
It's like a life.
It's the reader, it's the audience,
Yeah.
And so you read it, and you go, oh no.
Yeah.
Do you have a process? What about your new poems?
What about it?
What about it?
Yeah, I just, test it. I want to test it out too, to see if it's a living, breathing, what should I do with this work?
Thing.
Yeah. I'm in a poetry group with Sam, and we do a lot of that there. Talk about our writing and, make corrections. And I think that really helps too. Just testing them out, and seeing how they feel when you read them, because they often feel, like, oh, wait a minute, I should put something there. No one's going to know what I'm talking about. So, anyway.
I read a poem forever and ever. I actually wrote it in my head in the car, memorized it. It's one of the only poems I know memorized. And I read it for years as mistaking herself for invisible. The whole thing was third person. And suddenly, after years, I went, no, mistaking myself for invisible. And that's how it ended up you can read something for years and still go, no, that's not that.
Yeah.
That's just a way of thinking of it.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. I thank you all so much for reading and sharing your work. It's such a pleasure as a poet myself to be able to hear other poets. And I love all of your cadences and your individual voices, hearing it out loud, and certainly the writing itself. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds like a good note to end on. Thank you all for coming. And some of us may want to go forth to Hugo's. You're all welcome. Thanks again.
Thank you.